Greetings and welcome to Outlaw Gamer Radio, the official podcast of OutlawGamers.com. This is the show where we live to play and play to live. I'm Brent Adams, joined by a man who's going into action with the Knight Rider by his side, Mr. Lauren Baumgarten. Lauren!
Good evening, Brent.
Yes,
good evening.
indeed.
As usual, I did not look at the intro ahead of time, and it warms my cockles, Brent, that you...
I'm not going to tell you what it warms on me.
That you used that particular piece of media to akin it to, and I'm excited to share that piece of media with people. But before we get to that, sir, how are you? How was your week?
I am doing great. It's been a very good week for me. I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the road later on, and
excellent.
Go into a bit more detail. But I've had a very fun gaming week.
Indeed, it's been what I would call an eventful gaming week. Quite a commotion.
Yeah, one could draw that conclusion.
Quite a commotion.
It's also
this
been
week.
A very good week to be a Star Wars fan, as it turns out.
Yeah. So obviously, and we're not getting into this yet. Obviously, Brent, we're going to talk about Star Wars Battlefront this week.
True enough.
But we don't actually have it on the docket. But how about the movie trailer?
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. It was. I'm ready for an actual trailer at this point. You know, like I really dig the two teasers that we've had, but I'm really kind of itching for an actual trailer that's going to give us a little bit more insight into characters and story. But I know that's. I'm guessing June at the earliest is when we could expect to see that. But my appetite is wet at this point, and I'm very, very excited about The Force Awakens. Did you happen to watch any of the live stuff from Celebration last week? I caught. I managed to catch Mark Hamill.
I did. I was going to ask you if you had watched it, and did you see the part where I did watch it? I watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
We learned that the desert planet in the film is in fact not Tatooine. Spoiler alerts, by the way.
Too late.
Little late. Spoiler alerts if you want to know nothing about it. But we learned that. We got to see, is it BB-8? Is that the name of the...
Yeah, that's the name of the droid.
The new droid. They brought that out on stage. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I thought,
cool going on there.
I don't know if you saw the part, Brent, where they brought the two guys who they had discovered at Star Wars Celebration out to work on the film to create R2-D2. And I just thought that was really cool as well. Yeah, man, I could not be more jazzed for the movie, and I'm going to drive a pretty significant way to get to an IMAX theater to watch this movie.
In IMAX 3D?
Yeah, I mean, I have to. I absolutely have to. I'm so excited for I'm so excited for a Star Wars movie. I'm so excited for this. I'm trying not to be disrespectful to George, who killed my childhood. Sorry, I tried not to.
I don't think. I mean, I was talking with Tony last night, and it just turned into the Star Wars show, by the way. But we'll be done in a second. I was talking to Tony last night, and we were just talking about trailers and how we were kind of feeling about things. And I was just saying that part of the reason that I'm so excited for this new Star Wars trilogy is that George Lucas has nothing to do with it, and I kind of hate saying that in a way. Because I do want to give credit where credit's due, and his imagination and his vision for his sort of pseudo Flash Gordon series that he created back in '77 when A New Hope came out. It's been such a huge cornerstone of my life, and I kind of hate to say that I don't want him associated with it anymore, but I don't think he has any passion for it anymore.
I'm sure we're going to have a lengthy discussion when we talk about Battlefront, so we will leave it there for now, but suffice to say the new teaser was awesome, very exciting.
Yeah.
So, Brent, why don't we head into the garage, and we're not starting off with Star Wars Battlefront this week, but we are starting off with another big game that came out recently, and that is Mortal Kombat X, or Mortal Kombat X. 10.
I was going to say 10. Isn't it the best selling game of the franchise at this point, or maybe fastest selling game of the franchise at this point? I can't remember what the exact accolade is that I read about it, but apparently Mortal Kombat X is doing very, very well, and there's a new update, the 1.02 update that's adding new character skins, improving performance, tweaking online stuff. What are some of the specifics for people who are playing Mortal Kombat X right now?
Well, specifically, I believe that that they're trying to make up for what they took away from you, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But it adds a free classic Sub-Zero skin, Brent. As well as, here's what they're saying. Free classic Sub-Zero skin and a number of other DLC skins for different characters. It makes a number of online stability balances, including several specific moves, such as, and they have a list of throws here. They have a list of moves here. In general, throws will no longer sometimes connect on a ground reacting opponent off a counter hit. This is really specific stuff. Yeah. And then they have moves for like Shinnok and Sub-Zero and Takeda, Ronin, Takeda, Shirai Ryu. They have specific move fixes for that. All PC players will be given 10,000 crypt coins. That's with a K on both words, crypt coins.
Oh, yeah.
Which will be redeemed automatically the next time they start up the game to make up for some of Mortal Kombat X's reported issues on Steam.
Well, that's nice. Hopefully that'll hopefully that goes some way to assuaging those people of getting out the torches and pitchforks.
Yeah, and so, our listener who posted this on OutlawGamers.com posted this in the context of, well, at least NetherRealms is doing something to make up for the fact. I think there's this feeling out there that, well, I think the general feeling, or at least the sense I get, I'm not huge into fighting games, although I did actually watch, Brent, about 20 minutes of a couple of people playing this on IGN, and it was really fun to watch. Like, I wish I was more into this game because it looks super dope for a fighting game, but I think some people, they feel that while the game is really good, that NetherRealms has really chopped it up, and there's just a ton of this DLC that I really get the sense that players of this game feel like is just essentially chopped out content that was taken out. And so the listener who posted this on Outlaw Gamers posted it in the context of, well, at least they're doing something to try and make up for, chopping all the skins and all these different, characters out of the game.
Right.
And so I think there's a sense of, at least here's a little bit of something to say, hey, we hear you and we're going to give you something a little bit back.
Right. Well, whether that actually,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it feels like enough to those players. Again, it's not a game that you or I play, but I know for a lot of people who play this.
Exactly. That was going to be my question: is whether or not it is enough, for people who are active in the game.
Next up on the docket, Brent, we have something that is near and dear to both of our hearts.
That's true, and that is Ether 1 from your friends and ours over at White Paper Games in the UK. We got a message recently. We got a message from James Burton, who you may recall was on the postmortem with us when we talked about Ether 1 last year, back when we were doing the X Factor. James was on the show, and the news that I think is pretty interesting is that Ether 1 is coming out on PS4 this year. It's been totally recreated in Unreal Engine 4, and there's some surprises that are coming along too. I'm not being coy. We have no idea what those are. It's just that
James won't tell us.
James won't tell us because he knows us.
because he knows better.
That's right. And but apparently there's some stuff that hasn't been announced yet and hasn't been talked about yet. I have my own theories, but that there's going to be some additional surprise stuff going on with Ether 1 coming to PlayStation 4, and we're very excited about that. As you may recall, we were both pretty big fans of Ether 1. It was my game of the year for last year. I think, I don't know, I can't remember if it was when we talked about it in the post-mortem or if it was just talking about it on the X Factor, but I had said emotionally one of the most profound experiences I've ever had.
Which is, I think you went on to clarify, even more profound than the birth of your daughter.
I did not say that, in fact.
I'm pretty sure you said that.
Hopefully she will not grow up and listen to this and realize her life has been
almost sure that you said that.
But anyway, yeah. Ether 1 was a big deal for me, and I'm uber excited about it coming to PlayStation 4, where I hope that it will It will attract an even larger audience of people, bring in even more gamers to check out this really fantastic video game experience.
Yeah, me too, man. It's coming out, so it's going to be available on disc. They're putting out a hard copy, which is great news.
Go pick it up in the store.
And digitally, I'm quite sure. But I agree with you, Brent. I am so excited for this to come to the PS4, and I'm so excited for it to hopefully gain an even larger audience share. It really is one of the most profoundly emotional, interactive entertainment experiences that I have ever had. It really is. It's incredible. And I'm so excited to see this come out and see it get more attention. Hopefully we'll have James back on the show at some point, or somebody from White Paper. My guess is James, because he's not giving up the mic. But yeah, so we'll have more on this. Obviously, we're not linking you to a particular news article. James had just reached out, and we love the game so much. We were so excited about it that we wanted to bring it up on the show yet again, and we'll talk about it more later. But
yeah,
what
is the most controversial? What's the most controversial story of the week? What do you
I was going to say, at least 4 or 5 of you are probably waiting to hear our conversation on Star Wars Battlefront. So the article we're linking to you is titled Everything We Know About Star Wars Battlefront so far. This could be from any of the gaming websites out there, because they all had essentially the same article. Obviously, Brent, on Friday, April 17th, we got the initial teaser trailer for Star Wars Battlefront.
Yep.
There was quite a surprising response, surprising to me anyway, response on our website. There was a lot of negativity. I think a lot of people felt very, very disappointed.
Right.
I interacted a little bit, so for those that were interacting on Outlaw Gamers that day, my take on it won't really be a surprise, but I was actually super, super excited by the trailer.
Yeah, I was pretty excited as well.
Were you? I was going to ask you how you felt about it.
I was. I have to admit that when it started off and they said, it's an in-engine trailer, I have to admit I was a little bit disappointed. I was hoping to see gameplay.
Yes.
But I know that'll be coming, and this trailer, I liken it to the cinematic trailers they did for SWTOR. Before that game came out, it was mostly about just trying to kind of get you excited for the idea of the game itself, but also it did reveal some things about gameplay that you would be doing in the game. In this case, we see some of the squad mechanics as an example. You see like an engineer throwing down a shield, see somebody using a rocket booster pack to use like heavy artillery, take out an ATST, and
we see the ATST.
We see the ATST. You see the AT-AT at one point, and
right.
So and then obviously you got speeder bikes. You see some vehicular stuff going on. So I think that the trailer is meant to say the things that you're seeing happen in this trailer are things that you will be doing in gameplay. We're just not showing you those things in the context of gameplay right now. So I do want to see gameplay from it. I'm very keen on that, but just in terms of seeing something more substantial than that initial teaser, for what they're going to be doing in this game, the setting as an example, the fact that it is going to be primarily based in the original trilogy, although there's going to be some crossover with the new trilogy. We can talk about that in a second.
Right.
But overall, I was very excited for what was there.
So was I, Brent, and I think so. I don't know how much you looked at the information that came out after the trailer. The trailer, obviously beautiful, but obviously a cinematic trailer. I think, a lot of the disappointment I saw on the website was not necessarily that we didn't see gameplay. I don't think that was really too surprising to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But much as we all wanted to see it, I don't think it was surprising. But I think it was some of the forthcoming information. And Brent, how much did you play Battlefront 1 and 2?
A lot. I played a lot of Battlefront 1 and 2.
Yeah, so I did not play Battlefront 1. I played Battlefront 2, but I came to it probably, years after the game was out. And so when I played, there was essentially nobody on the servers, but I still played and loved the game.
Yeah.
There were, I think what bothered a lot of the people is what they consider to be either a lack of innovation or iteration on the game, and even step backwards in a lot of places. So I think one thing that people have talked about a lot is the lack of space battles.
Right.
I think a lot of people were hoping to see the ability to basically leave the planet atmosphere and move into a space battle. I think some people were disappointed at the lack of a single-player campaign.
Yeah. I've seen things to that effect also.
I think some people were, I have seen people say that there's not even a class-based system there. We don't really know on that one. I know there was some concern about the lack of maps. Now, I had seen some people say there's only 4 maps, and I'm not.
As far as the class thing goes, they haven't. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just haven't seen the information. But I haven't seen anything where they said there's not going to be class-based stuff. Is it just that they haven't said specifically that there is, or have they said that there's not?
No, I don't think they have said specifically that there's not, but I don't know that for a fact either.
Yeah, okay.
And I would say, based on what you described, actually, it does make some sense that there might be some class. I didn't really read that into the trailer.
Well, I mean, there were classes in the original game, so as derivative as this seems to be in many respects, one would assume. But I mean, again, I don't know. I've read a few articles on this, but I haven't seen that specific thing addressed.
Right. There was some concern about the lack of maps, which we don't really know. They haven't said. They've said that there are 4 planets.
There's 4 at launch, and then
4 at launch, and then they'll be adding Jakku, which is a planet from the next movie. And so on December, I think it's 1st, might be the 8th, they're releasing a free expansion pack with Jakku, which is a.
Go ahead. Sorry.
What were you going to say? Oh, so they're releasing Jakku, which is an free expansion pack that contains missions that are a link between the end of Jedi, Return of the Jedi, and what will be the beginning of the next movie. And they said it's sort of some canon that's only available in the video game. So within
the specific thing that's kind of cool about that, just to sort of break off for 1 second.
Sure. The
specific thing that I think is really interesting about that is one of the most evocative images from the new trailer. And listen, if you're one of those people that is like, you're so serious about spoilers, you're not even watching the teasers for this, skip ahead a minute. But one of the most evocative images from the trailer is that opening image of that Star Destroyer, just crashed into the surface of the planet, buried halfway in sand. And then there's another at the towards the end of the trailer. You see the Millennium Falcon flying into it. It appears to be a Super Star Destroyer. But anyway, the point is that obviously there has been some incredible, kind of battle that's taken place above this planet that's led to this. And what they're saying is you're going to play out that battle in Star Wars Battlefront. And that will kind of set up what it is that we're seeing in The Force Awakens, which chronologically takes place, however many years later.
That's right. So within the first 3 weeks of the game's release, there will be 5 planets. We don't know. There may be 2 or 3 different maps on each planet. We have no idea. I don't think at this point. I know that, and Rowan is probably, Rowan is one of the people on the website that was pretty upset, and not the only one by any means. Sure. But I know that she was very concerned that there was, or upset that there was nothing from the original 3 movies. That it's Hoth, Endor, and Tatooine.
You said that there's nothing from the original 3 movies?
I'm sorry, from the prequels is what I meant.
From the prequels.
Right. There's no currently no planets from the prequels. Yeah. So the planets are Hoth, Endor, and Tatooine. A 4th planet that I can't remember the name of right off the top of my head, which is and then Jakku, and I can't remember if Jakku or that 4th planet is where they actually, it's the construction facility where they build like the AT-ATs and so forth.
Okay.
Which I thought was pretty cool. I know she wanted stuff from the earlier prequels. I have to say, Brent, I am extremely pleased personally with the direction that they're going with this. I am really glad that that they're really focusing mainly initially on the planets from now. I would like to see, maybe Cloud City and some other locations, but that they're focusing on the planets from the first 3 movies. And I really got a sense of those first 3 movies, the original trilogy, episodes 4, 5, and 6, that really, created the memories for me in Star Wars. And I'm very, very excited about it. Now, would I pre-order the game?
No.
I won't pre-order any.
We're not going there. We're not going there again. No.
DICE. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it's going to work. After Battlefield 4, I won't make that mistake.
Nor will I. I'd like to get it on PC, and I'm going to wait. It'll be 6-day edition for Brent on this one, because I'm definitely not going to get I'm not going to get caught in a Battlefield 4 trap.
I'll be honest. One of our listeners sent me a link saying that the game is available for pre-order. I can't remember the Kinguin, I think is the name of the website.
Okay.
That many of our users have gone to, and the game you can pre-order it for the PC for $32 right now.
That's a great price.
Or $33, and I seriously considered it at $33, but
great price.
But ended up deciding not to, because I just don't feel comfortable going down that road again.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to either. I'd rather take the chance on spending a little bit more money and getting a good game experience rather than gamble the 30 that EA and DICE are going to pull this off without a hitch.
Right. I mean, the reality is, if it turns out to be a good game, it's going to be worth the $60. It won't matter. But
yeah, I think that just to address some of the criticisms that were raised by Rowan and others on our site, I don't think that any of those are invalid. I guess that they're just not bothering me to the same degree that they are. As an example, one thing that people have talked about is no space combat. It's all planetary-based combat. I mean, you'll be flying in X-Wings or TIE fighters. So
in the atmosphere, you'll be kind of like in Battlefield, you could fly jets or helicopters.
Precisely, but in the atmosphere. And I guess that was what I expected. I guess that I didn't have a great expectation that this first time out they were going to make space combat a priority. I don't know why I felt that way, but when they said that, it just sort of felt like, yeah, I guess that's pretty much what I had figured. So I guess if you had a different expectation, then you would be more disappointed by that than I was. But I think that gives them, and I think that it's valid to say, well, they've taken a step back since that stuff was there in Battlefront 2, and certainly I would love to have a game. What I would like to see, and I don't think it's going to happen in this game, but perhaps a sequel or something. But what I would love to see is basically a No Man's Sky sort of attitude about how space combat and everything works. And I don't know if the game engine can support it or not, but what I would love to see is, you and I, Lauren, are on a squad with some of our friends. We're fighting, and we're getting bombardment from TIE bombers or whatever. Run over, hop in an X-wing fighter, power it up, get into the skies, take out the bombers, but then fly up out of the atmosphere into orbit around the planet where the Star Destroyer launching the bombers is, and join the assault force taking out that Star Destroyer, or maybe even fly up, dock with the Star Destroyer, hop out, go inside the Star Destroyer, and start trying to take over their Star Destroyer. But like that scale of combat where it can go from ground-based close quarters to aerial to space dogfights, and then even boarding the enemy ship. Like, I would love to see the game encompass that entire range of activity. I just don't know how realistic it is supporting multiplayer the way that they're wanting to. But I mean, that's where I'd love to see it get to eventually.
I mean, if you're boarding the Star Destroyer, I think that's kind of cool, and I think it's maybe doable. But if the expectation, and again, I don't know what they did in 2, but if the expectation is that you go up and have these space battles, that almost feels like a separate game to me. And I think it's cool. I just think I just wouldn't. I don't know. To me, that it's not. Wouldn't interest me personally in my play style. So the fact that it's not there doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it sort of takes too much of the focus away from, what it is that they're going for in the game. And I mean, admittedly, obviously they've done multiplayer space dogfight stuff in the past, and I would certainly be open to doing that. Whether or not it would work within the mechanics, whether it would like balance with everything else that they're doing, I don't know. But it'd be interesting to see. But everything else, like no single-player campaign, I think a single-player campaign would be worthwhile. But, at the same time, that doesn't ruin anything for me. As I recall, the first Battlefront, I mean, you could, like, basically load up you could play by yourself and just load up bots to play the levels, but there wasn't a campaign as such. And so again, that's not like a deal breaker for me. So I don't know. I guess that all this just sort of depends on how intensely you were expecting or desiring some of these things to happen. As for like the prequel location showing up here, that's hard for me to want. It's hard for me to kind of be excited about that, because I have come to loathe this movie so much that I don't really associate any of the locations from the prequels with any positive feelings.
No, I'm the same way. I responded on the website that I frankly would have been disappointed if they were in there, because I don't have any relationship to them.
I also understand that, part of that is me being the age that I am, and the fact that the original trilogy was really my trilogy and the prequel trilogy really wasn't. And I understand that if you're younger than we are, and you came up at a time where maybe the prequel trilogy did have more impact on you, I totally understand that. I can't want it like those people can.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Brent. Boom Goes the Dynamite, I think is his name on Outlaw Gamers. I think hit the nail on the head when he said that, he was noticing that a lot of people who were sort of really near and dear to the franchise seemed to be a little bit more disappointed,
right?
Because they had different expectations than maybe those who weren't. And
that's interesting.
In general terms, I think it does come down to expectations. I had none, and certainly not ones surrounding the things that other people feel like are missing. I didn't have any expectations around those things,
right?
Around those things being there, single player campaign, space battles. They're also things that I don't care about. I like single player campaigns, but I couldn't care less that Battlefield has single player campaigns, and I've never gotten more than an hour or two into them because they're typically so bad.
Yeah.
And so I don't, yet I've put hundreds of hours into the multiplayer pieces of those games. And so I don't really care if this game has a single player or not. I don't really care if it has space battles. I'm very pleased that they focus so strongly on the episodes 4, 5, and 6, because that's what I really personally am invested in seeing. And so I didn't have expectations around other planets being there or not being there. And so the idea to me that you can drive speeder bikes
and there's always room to bring those things in, and the big expansions that will be coming down the pipe in the
and that's the other thing is I'm not the least bit sort of one of the other pieces that was brought up was all the DLC or the potential DLC forthcoming, and while I'm not supporting DLC, it comes as no surprise given that EA and DICE's last big game, Battlefield 4, long before the game launched, was announced 5 expansion packs for a total of $60, the equivalent price of the game, in their Battlefield Premium pack. And I wouldn't expect this game to be any different. So while I'm not saying that that's the way things should be, that's the way I expect them to be, and so I'm not surprised by it.
That's well put.
And if the game's good enough, I paid for the premium pack for Battlefield 3, and I had no issue with the amount of money I spent whatsoever, because I felt the content was good enough. I paid for it in Battlefield 4 and ended up getting a refund on everything because the game was so screwed. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm really excited, Brent. I was very pleased with what we saw.
I am too.
I cannot wait. I just saw a recent developer diary series made for Game, the video game stores in Europe. And the first, they released the first developer diary. It really just talks about the graphics and the audio, which is no new information. But I'm excited for new information on this game, and I can't wait to see more on it in the coming months.
Yes, gameplay is what I want to see, and I know that we'll get there pretty soon.
Indeed, it can't be long. I would imagine at E3 we'll get to see some.
All right, so let's close out with
maybe the greatest video of all time.
Maybe the greatest video of all time. Maybe the greatest news story of all time. This is the music video for True Survivor, the theme song to Kung Fury, as performed by the only man who is able to do these things legally anymore, and that is David Hasselhoff. Kung Fury, of course, is the Kickstarter darling 80s action mashup film project that has gotten so much attention, deservedly so. And this is the official music video for that film. It is full of all of the fun and 80s kitsch that you might imagine. It's got tons of stuff from Kung Fury, and the song is way legit. I mean, it really sounds. It sounds like a song that is familiar, and yet you can't remember having heard before. It's so perfect to the tone and everything that's going on. I mean, basically, like, the only question here is, how does Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon not get spun off into another game all its own that also has a David Hasselhoff theme song? I mean, that is the only way that this can get better, in my estimation, is if there's some kind of video game tie into Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon.
Yeah, it almost, when you watch it, you feel like it might be from Far Cry Blood Dragon. I don't know what else to add to this, Brent, except it's just hysterical as hell. And if you haven't watched it, you should stop whatever you're doing right now. Literally, you should pull over the car, pause the podcast, and pull this up on YouTube. It's that awesome.
It's pretty fucking hysterical.
You know what we need now, Brent, is you want some 80s nostalgia. Now I want to see something based on the Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, come on. Don't even tease me. That movie was so terrible. Like it's like a no-brainer, right? Like, doing a Dukes movie is like a no-brainer, and like somehow it gets fucked up.
That's true.
That's terrible.
Along with Starsky and Hutch, too.
Oh, man, you're not kidding about that.
What's next? They're going to screw up the Barney Miller video game?
I don't know how much they can really screw up Barney Miller. I'll be honest with you.
All right, we are back, and we've headed into the clubhouse to kick our feet up for a while and talk about something a little deeper than David Hasselhoff. But before we do, Brent, I believe you have a poll from last week to go over.
I do indeed. We asked you guys, do you find that looting breaks immersion? This, of course, comes from the game mechanic follow-up discussion that we had last week. Here's how you answered that question. Do you find that looting breaks immersion? In last place with 9%, you said, yes, it takes my focus away from other things going on in the game. 16% of you in third place said, I think looting does narrow your focus, but that doesn't mean it isn't fun. Second place, 32%, you said, no, I've never really considered it a problem. And the number one answer, with 42% of the Outlaw Gamer Radio audience, said only if it isn't incorporated into the game smoothly. So, not quite the majority decision that we had in the previous poll, but also there were 4 possible answers this time, which always tends to split it up. It's hard to get a majority going when you've got 4 answers. It's usually easier with 3. Just random observations that in no way pertain to what we're talking about now. Next up, Lauren, next topics.
It was an interesting subject last week, and we thank you all for your participation as usual. This week we have another interesting topic that was a suggestion from one of our listeners.
Yeah.
And
it kind of pertains a little bit, I suppose, to maybe the battlefield, or at least it's kind of like another part of that battlefield.
Battlefront.
Excuse me. Yes, Battlefront.
I keep doing that too.
Yeah.
Yes, it definitely does, and it may have come off the heels of that. And the question, essentially, the title of the article, which is essentially the question we're going to be talking about this week, is: are cinematic trailers worth getting excited about?
Yeah, this comes from PC Gamer, right? And they're talking about this amongst themselves. We said, hey, we'll talk about it amongst ourselves too. What do you know?
That's exactly right. So the article itself, Brent, has little to no value. That's not true. That's not a true
statement. I like
statement.
PC Gamer. Come on.
I like PC Gamer too. No, you guys can read the article, but really the question speaks for itself. That question of it, it's not something we've talked about before, but the value of cinematic trailers, and are they worth getting excited about? And I think to take that question a little bit deeper, Brent, do they have a positive impact, or are they potentially harmful? I think sometimes they might set expectations.
It's like a hammer. You know what I mean? It can build or it can crush a skull.
It's true. It's true. For example, and I'll give you the best example of skull crushing is I'm want to even say the words aloud.
Please.
But The Last Guardian.
Hey, you don't know. That could have been gameplay directly taken from that game. It never came out. How would we know if it was?
It's true. They made a 3.5 minute game.
They did. They made a 3.5 minute video game. It was the most beautiful thing that had ever been.
No.
We've all been burned by cinematic trailers in the sense that we've allowed ourselves to maybe get more excited for a game based on how good the trailer is than the actual game. I mean, it's one thing when you see a trailer for, as an example, The Force Awakens or Batman versus Superman, another big trailer that came out over the weekend. It's one thing to get excited for those things because those are using, in most cases, not all, but in most cases, those are using footage taken from the movie you're actually going to see. So you're getting excited because you're getting a peek at the actual thing that you're going to see. But obviously in video games, it's differently. They try to utilize that medium of trailers and teasers, but they show you things that you're never going to see in the game itself, that you're never going to experience. In many cases, you're never going to see that particular media again outside of that trailer. And so whenever you see those kinds of things in video games, it's inherently non-representative. And so I think that it's a little bit like the Dark Side Cave in Dagobah in the sense that, whatever happens inside the Dark Side Cave, it's all about what you take in there, whatever baggage you bring along, that's what's going to come out. And so I think that's kind of how it is with trailers. Whatever you put into it kind of dictates how much it will affect you for good or ill.
Certainly that's true, Brent. Although lately, and when I say lately, I mean maybe in the last couple of years, there's been this trend now to create cinematic trailers that are in engine, and part of that is because a lot of the cinematics in games now are created in engine.
I would say
because
most,
they can be, but they make a point to point out to you that these trailers are in engine, which for an educated game public,
doesn't mean much.
Doesn't mean much, but for people that don't follow too closely, I think it can be deceiving, right? Because it feels like it's in-game footage.
Do you think that's the point? Like, is the point to kind of convince you that the game is going to look this good because this is running in the game engine?
I think it is. I mean, I can't imagine what the point would be otherwise, because it doesn't. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's to even subconsciously give you the idea that if the cutscene looks this good, the game must look at least close to this.
Right. I was going to say deceive, but I think maybe that's too strong a word, because they really don't say that. It's an inference. I think that they hope that you make that leap. That, if this is in game, then this is what the game's going to look like. And of course,
that's exactly right.
It won't,
and I think, if you're playing a property like, for example, and there's not many of them out there, but for example, Uncharted, which goes seamlessly from gameplay to cinematic.
Yeah.
So that what you see in that cinematic will look the same in gameplay.
Yeah.
That has value, but otherwise it has essentially no value. Like, for example, Battlefront, it has essentially no value seeing, in my mind, from a... It gets me excited.
As far as judging what the game will look like.
Right. I mean, it gets me excited because it gave me some hints as to what will be in the game. So what I learned from that trailer specifically, for example, is Endor is in the game, Tatooine is in the game, there is the AT-ATs are in the game, ATSTs, speeders. Like, I was looking, you look at assets and you go, okay, those are probably in the game.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it doesn't tell you, much about what it looks like. And so I do think cinematic trailers have value, however, in the sense that, like films, they are intended to do more than just obviously show gameplay, but they tell you a little bit about the story. They tell you about the scene. Yeah. They tell you about the story. And so especially if it's for a property that's something you're not familiar with, like, let's say The Order 1886. It's a new IP. It's a new world. It gives you a glimpse into the world and what they're trying to create when you get to play the actual game.
Yes.
Now, do I think they have value on their own? No.
Well, what about entertainment value on their own? I mean,
that they certainly do. Actually, I mean, we do a whole. In our previous iteration, we dedicated a whole third of our show just to trailers.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Well, just to talk about another Star Wars property, I mentioned the SWTOR trailers. I think Blur Studios did those, and those cinematic trailers. The three that I'm thinking of, they did give you a glimpse at game mechanics in action, but just not in the context of gameplay. But you were seeing like, the the smuggler class can dual wield, and the heavy gunner class can go toe to toe with a Sith Lord using all of these armaments against this force wielder. But the pieces of media kind of worked on several levels. They did show those things off, but it was mostly about setting up the conflict, setting up the era in the Star Wars timeline that these things happen, and giving you some sense of backstory, and just looking at them from the standpoint of, okay, these are like really kick-ass animated shorts that take place, in the Star Wars universe. They got a lot of entertainment value on their own, but if you base your purchasing decision entirely on those things, then yeah, that could end up being a mistake. I mean, in terms of actual selling me on a game, in terms of some company putting out a piece of media that makes me want to buy it, the form, and you and I have talked about this many, many times, the form that has always been most effective for me goes back to those Red Dead Redemption videos that Rockstar done and that other people have started doing since, where somebody is narrating and walking you through a section of the game, and they are explaining what's happening, what you as the player are doing, how the game mechanics function. Although it seems very dry and almost like a training video, like some sort of orientation thing you'd go through for a job, although it seems very dry, that is probably the most useful thing in making a purchasing decision. And I end up getting more excited about those in terms of actually getting amped to play a game.
I agree, Brent. I mean, as you said, you and I have talked about this many times and how powerful those particular pieces of media were. And I think it's because they were somewhere in between. Gameplay videos, I also don't think, we could flip this question on its head and ask the question, are gameplay videos worth getting excited about? And honestly, if you see an isolated gameplay video, 2 or 3 minutes in the middle of BioShock, for example, or
if you don't have context, it's not much good either.
Right. And so I think that what we see when we see those types of media that we saw from Red Dead Redemption Life in the West is somewhere in between that. You get sort of the story, the tone, the world, but also some in-depth insight into the mechanics.
Do you remember that video for Shadow of Mordor that showed off the Nemesis system for the first time?
Yep, absolutely, yes.
Like, that was my reaction. Like, after watching that video, I said, I am buying this game. There is no doubt in my mind that I have got to play this game. After seeing that, and that's there's just something about having gameplay mechanics explained. I think that it
at a fourth grade level.
Yeah, well, I mean, in my case, but I'm not necessarily saying that every game has to do that, but certainly there are some games where the gameplay mechanic in question is such a big part of the experience. If you don't really understand the significance of it, or what might be fun or really compelling about it, if you're not explaining those things to your potential audience, then maybe you're losing them before you ever had the chance to get them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think those kind of videos are the ones that are most likely to push me in the direction of a purchase.
Yeah, me too.
However, back to the original question, are cinematic trailers worth getting excited about? I would say yes, they are worth getting excited about, with the tempered understanding that getting excited and making a purchase are not the same thing.
Very, very good point. Yeah, I think that's exactly how I would have put it. Getting excited about what you're seeing is one thing. Throwing them your money after you've seen it, that's another. I mean, honestly, you have to be using that same part of your brain that you use when you go to a strip club. You really do. You cannot let your excitement spend your money. I think that's the trick to cinematic trailers. They're a lot like strip clubs.
So what you're saying is don't get too drunk while you're watching a cinematic trailer?
And for the love of God, don't let them touch you skin on skin. Jesus.
All right. With that, Brent, I think we should turn it over to the listeners and hear what their opinions are. As always, we want to know what they think about whether or not cinematic trailers are worth getting excited about, or do you guys think that it's a bunch of marketing trickery? Would you rather just see gameplay? What are your thoughts on cinematic trailers and what their role is in the marketing and lead up to the release of a game?
Okay, guys, let's hit the road, and we're going to talk about the games that we've been playing this week. Short list this time, only one apiece. Lauren, what have you been playing? Please tell me it's Sherlock Holmes.
My list is actually sort of shorter than one in the context of I've played about 20 minutes of it. I literally, prior to all of that was right before we started recording.
Oh, yeah.
I was about to get on this podcast and say, for what I think it might be the first time in 5 years, I did not play a video game this week.
It's rare for you, yeah.
Yeah, and part of that is because there's so much for me to be watching right now. Daredevil, I'm caught up in Daredevil. My wife are watching.
Did you finish first season?
No, I haven't finished it yet.
Okay, I won't say
my wife and I are watching a series called Rectify on Netflix.
I've heard of that.
Which, yeah, it's really good. It came from the Sundance Channel, and so. I literally have not played a game this week, and while I was waiting for you to get ready to record, I jumped in and got about 20 minutes of Sherlock Holmes, which is actually really interesting because I hadn't played it in over a week and a half, and it's a fairly, you're trying to solve something, and there's clues, and so I thought, jumping back in, am I going to have any clue what to do? And It took me about 5 minutes to sort of figure out again what the controls were.
Reacclimate and all that?
Yeah, to reacclimate, and then I started playing, and I was having a good time with it. So I will be playing more of that this week. As a matter of fact, I'm looking forward to playing it as soon as we're done recording. But for this week, I don't have a lot to say about it, other than I had to be able to put something on this list.
All right,
I couldn't stand myself if I didn't have a game this week.
Well, I appreciate you taking one for the team, as it were, and
by playing video games. By the way, Brent, we should say
amusement.
Did we say this last week that you and I believe at this point have both pre-ordered The Witcher 3?
No, we haven't, but that's true. We have. As a matter of fact, I got that's actually a nice segue into what I'm going to talk about.
Excellent,
because I got my download code for it over the weekend, I guess. So
you did?
I did.
I did not get my download code. Oh, you got your download code because I remember.
Yeah, you know. So anyway. Lauren and I were talking last week, and we decided we both want to check out The Witcher 3.
We decided that it was one of the biggest releases of this year, and that we felt like we definitely needed to be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
Hence, I don't want to we're probably going to get a lot of shit for pre-ordering a game, but we pre-ordered it because we both made the decision that this was a big enough game that we felt it deserved to be talked about, so we pre-ordered it.
Yeah. And also, but I think the fact that it's, I don't know, the fact that it's CD Projekt Red,
it's Red Dead Redemption,
the fact that it's The Witcher, I don't know, it's not exactly the same as ordering. Well, anyway, I'm rationalizing. Yeah, we pre-ordered the game, but we knew it's like, okay, we're going to pre-order this game, and in general, we're not doing pre-orders, but this game is going to be the exception.
Yeah, we were sold on it. We watched a couple pieces of media, and we're sold on it.
Yes. Okay.
And with the pedigree,
Now the caveat to that is Lauren's going to get it on PlayStation 4.
Yes.
And check it out there.
We did this on purpose as well. We got it on 2 different systems.
I was more interested in checking it out on PC, and it just so happens that I decided, it just so happens there was a promotion that if you ordered a shiny new video card, you got a download code for The Witcher 3. And I said,
well, isn't that lucky for you?
Wow, what a great excuse to get a brand new video card. I actually did a relatively major upgrade on my gaming PC this past week. And I'm sure that one day soon I'll figure out how I'm going to pay for it.
I love that you're so into your PC now.
I'm kind of joking about this, but honestly, I probably shouldn't have done this. I really just was like, I want this, and I'm going to put this on a credit card, and I don't know when it's going to get paid off. Click.
Dude, honestly, if you take away 10% of your daughter's food per day, she won't even notice, and within a year you'll have it paid off.
Listen, if I took 10% of my own food away, I could pay this off, and I would be eating less, which would probably be a good thing. But not only did I upgrade my video card to an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 970.
Ooh.
But I also got an SSD main drive to install my OS and games on. So
how big?
A 250 gig SSD.
256 gigs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm running I'm running an SSD drive now, and I got my graphics card upgraded, and I kind of want to go ahead and upgrade my RAM too, because I'm only running 8 gigs right now, and I'm kind of thinking about maybe going to 16.
Well, that's cheap.
Yeah.
You can rationalize that. That'll cost you nothing compared to what you just spent.
No, not compared to what I just spent. I actually got it. Yeah, I tell you what, I made the mistake of calling Tony, and because he told me about this website that I'd heard about, I knew about, but I couldn't remember the name. I said, what's a website where you go and you can like look at how prices on things have changed over time on Amazon? He's like, Camel. I'm like, yeah, Camel. Because I was looking at this SSD and it was like $106. I was like, that seems like a really good deal. But I wanted to see like if I was crazy or not. So I go and I look up this SSD on Camel, and sure enough, 106 is a pretty good deal on it. And I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and get this. So bam, got the SSD. And I wasn't really planning on getting the video card, but then you and I were talking about The Witcher, and I'd kind of been looking at video cards. I'd been doing a bunch of research on the 970 because I thought that was sort of like the sweet spot, like dollars to performance that you could get on the NVIDIA line right now.
Yeah, what is it, like mid threes?
It is, yeah, it's mid threes, and Amazon had it for $330.
Right, and so you minus the $60 that you were spending on The Witcher anyway.
Yeah, for the Witcher.
And it makes it $270.
Exactly. And plus I'm going to sell my old video card and I can get probably about $150, $175 for that. So I start doing all this math in my head and like, oh, I'm only going to pay $45 for this thing or whatever. And
dude, that's the way you got to do it. My wife and her father
and lie to yourself.
No. Talk to me all the time about selling. You sell your video card while it's still worth $150, $170.
Oh, no, that's totally
and
valid.
you buy the $300 one, and you're only spending $130 on it.
Yeah, and there's truth in that. I mean, really, it's not just self-deception. That there is some.
No, that's until I moved to Brazil. I was doing that every 2 years.
Yeah, so I did that. I replaced my 760. I got the 970, which I'm very happy with. And I mean, I have to be honest with you that a big part of this was, I want to play The Witcher 3. I want that to look really good. I really want to get Grand Theft Auto 5 on PC, and I want that to look really good. And frankly, I've been playing Skyrim, and I really wanted to get into, I've been doing mods. I've talked about the mods. There's a series of mods for Skyrim that fall under this category of E and B mods based on this. I think it's just called like the E and B integration. This guy Boris, he basically created this way of getting code into the game to get the render engine to do things that it originally wasn't intended to do. I guess I may not be explaining this correctly because I don't quite understand it myself. So if I'm wrong about how E&Bs work, I apologize. My point is that E&B mods are major graphic overhaul mods for Skyrim and other games. And if you look at Skyrim running on E&B mods, it's ridiculous. I mean, it looks like bleeding edge current generation games. I mean, it's really phenomenal, some of the things it can do. And so I wanted to get in on this, and that was really a big reason behind getting this video card. And of course, I can run these things, but I mean, just barely. Like with like non-EMB stuff, just like 4K textures and that kind of stuff that really do make the game look great, and some lighting tweaks and stuff. I can still run all that, and I've got a rock solid 60 frame a second, no problem. I throw in the EMB mod, and I'm like, okay, it's like maybe 57, 50, 56 frames a second, not too bad. But as soon as I start adding in some of the other things that I like to have, like grass, some of the grass mods that make the world more lush, some of the tree mods, things for water and stuff like as soon as you start like adding some of those things on, I'm down to like 37 frames a second. Like, oh, it's so intense in terms of your graphic horsepower. And I was really hoping that I'd be able to run all those at a really high frame rate, but even with these upgrades I've done, it's not in the cards. So I've got to give up something. Either I just run the EMB mods and don't do a bunch of the other stuff, or that kind of thing. I got to make a sacrifice somewhere because I really don't want to run Skyrim at 30 frames a second. But or
you get a new video card.
Yeah, again, I don't know if the video cards, because I think
this was on the new video.
This is
card.
on the new video card, son. This
I'm
is
sorry. I thought this was on your. I thought this was on your previous video card.
No, that's the thing. Like I got the 970, and like I'm so excited to like get these EMB mods installed. I'm like, oh, this looks great. It plays great. Let me just add a few more mods. Oh no, it's not working so good now. And the thing's got 4 gigs of VRAM. I mean, it's just it's intense. It's so intense.
Yeah.
But anyway, it looks great. I can like enable it and like mess around with it for a few minutes, but it's fun to like ride around and just like look at stuff. But for actually playing, I got to have the 60 frame a second or at least close to it. So anyway, oh god, my gaming PC groweth. Anybody interested in buying an EVGA 760?
That's so awesome, Brent. I'm so psyched you're into the PC. I know I'm so psyched you're having fun with Skyrim. Soon, not long now, a month.
I know.
You will be a little less than a month actually. You'll be taking probably a month from tomorrow. You'll be taking it out on Witcher 3.
I'm excited about that.
With that, Brent, I think we reached the end of the show because you and I both only had one game this week.
Yeah.
As usual, we're going to turn it over to the listeners and let them sound off on everything we talked about in today's episode, whether it's Sherlock Holmes, Skyrim, what we talked about in the Clubhouse. That list is so short. What we talked about in the Clubhouse, whether or not cinematic trailers are worth getting excited about. And, of course, everything we talked about in the garage, David Hasselhoff's awesome new video called True Survivor, Star Wars Battlefront and the announcement thereof and all the following, the subsequent avalanche of information, Ether 1 coming to PS4, and, of course, Mortal Kombat X, the new patch that added some character skins and improved performance. Let us know your thoughts on all of that and anything else in the gaming world. We want to hear what you guys think about what's going on. As usual, he is Brent Adams. I am Lauren Baumgarten. And remember, you don't stop playing because you get old because you stop playing.